Hello, and welcome to Everything Remade. I'm Edie Quinn, and before I get started today, I'd like to call attention to the GoFundMe campaign that's being run in support of my dear friend and vocalist of Plague Walker, Anais Sagala. She's been hospitalized for over a week, and while things are looking up and she's on the road to recovery, she's still in desperate need of support to cover medical costs and lost work while she recovers. I'm going to put the GoFundMe link in the show notes. If you can and haven't already, please donate. If not, because I know everything is tough right now, please share the page and help get the word out. Thanks. Now on to the show. So Brendan Stevens of Overo and It Only Ends Once, or maybe I should refer to Brendan as Dr. Screamo, asks, I ask this because it's a question I kind of wish someone would ask me. What is the overlooked gem, most underrated album you have played on? The word underrated, sometimes like that's a strange word to address, because you don't like that. Like this album that we're going to talk about was rated like pretty highly by some people, but I think as a whole, it definitely was like overlooked because it wasn't a main project that I was touring with, or it wasn't something that we hyped up for months ahead of time and stuff like that. But the album that I'm going to talk about is On Garde by Riposte, who I did with Randall Aviles. And so Randall is on the chat with me now, and we're going to talk about how we got started with the record and how we recorded it and how it all came to be. So, yeah.
Was it worth the same? Life was wasted. Was it good time for time? But my to this day. Where you from? Where you at the day? Ruin your silence. A mess. The world they could change. I'm just fucking tired. Living in a bed. Out in smaller. Living in a den. I know never. There's a pile of shit.
Y'all might know Randall from previous bands like Heritage Unit, which was before Riposte, and then like Glass Splinter, Laura Dern after the fact. But yeah, so thanks for chatting with me here, Randall. I'm excited to talk about this album with you.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's like I said, when you say underrated, sometimes that implies like that people who did listen to it like didn't enjoy it or whatever, and I certainly never felt that way. But yeah, I think a lot of people, I think the term slept on, might apply or whatever.
Yeah.
What do you think about that specifically? Like, did you receive a lot of feedback about the songs when the album was out?
Just from friends who I had showed it to,
Mm-hmm.
who I was talking to regularly at the time.
Yeah.
There's like a small circle of people who like would keep up with us, and they all seem to like it. So, and that's pretty much like the initial response I heard.
Yeah, it's just like, it's one of those things where, I definitely like, people responded to it. People like gave like encouraging remarks and stuff. And then because it's just like a project that we did and we just threw out into the world, it was kind of just like, wow, that was awesome. And then I don't know, like if it's something that people return to or whatever. But then like we released the album in January of 2019, and I remember in 2019, like at the end of the year, someone like sent me like they tagged me in an album of the year list, and it was like someone from like Denmark or something, and they tagged me in this album of the year list, and the album was on there. And so it's like,
I think you told me about that. That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah. So it's just like, it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, I mean, we also, putting something out in December, like late December or in January, is like one of those, like, that's like a real dead zone for like, like
Yeah.
if you want people to talk about your album, it seems like you do it like in the summer, and then like you tour on it, and obviously neither of those things were something we were going to do. But yeah, so, just starting there, like, yeah, it was released in 2019. I can't remember exactly when we started sending files back and forth, but you came to record in September 2018.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as I remember, like, what happened was, I mean, we were just chatting, and I was just like, we should do this. Like, can you record your own guitars? And you were like, I got some riffs, like, and you were like, but I'd probably just fly out there. And I was just like, whoa, that's really fucking cool. Like, yeah, that'd be fun. But yeah, what do you remember about like when you were compiling like your lists, like your like riffs that you were gonna send and stuff? Like, were you? I know we were both kind of shooting for like slightly different things in the same area, and just sort of like seeing what happened when we meshed them all together. So like, what were you really like looking to do and like looking for?
Well, at that point, I hadn't been in a band, I think, for over a year. I'm trying to remember. And then we had started talking, I think, like in the spring of 2018. And I had some leftover riffs from like Heritage stuff and some other things I had been working on. And was probably like more listening to like 400 Years and like Lincoln and like some other stuff like that. That's probably what I was trying to ape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just remember like
yeah, there's that last song is like something I've had for a long time, that was from a project that never happened, that was like a jawbreaker, like kind of thing.
Oh yeah, I definitely like had that in my notes. Like I was like Jawbreaker 7 inches. Like that's what that,
Yeah.
that song in particular. I was like, this is like the Jawbreaker 7 inches. This is like the stuff that, like I would put on and wear out in high school, for sure. Yeah, it's funny, like, you mentioned 400 years, and that was definitely like a connective like tissue, like between this, what you were doing and what I was trying to do as well. Like I know I was like obsessed with like just trying to make guitars that sounded heavy also sound really weird. Like I wanted to write kind of like out there-ish parts,
That's what I remember. I think like when we were sending stuff back and forth, hearing your stuff was like, oh, this is kind of wonky. It's kind of weird. It's kind of funky. It's like,
Yeah. I mean, and I like, yeah, I know there's specific parts where like, There's specific parts where I was wondering, like, does this take the wind out of things a little bit? But like, just just listening just now, and I was just like, no, I feel like, personally, I feel like this holds up really well. I mean, there's the thing that I often, the only thing that stuck out to me about the record is something that it's like, this is just, I've been called out on this so many times, and it just does not stop me from doing it, is like the snare drum is really loud.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, it just does, like, even the record I released last week, Il Evectis, like, it's like, the snare drum's fucking loud. Like, I just can't.
That feels like a you thing though, because I was showing my friend this record, and I think I was probably playing some other either Coma stuff or that album you did with your partner. I forget the name of it.
Oh, The Hope Hereafter? Or Matterfield.
Matterfield.
Ah.
And I think they remarked on like how you have a very particular drum sound that you like and stick with, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I do definitely have, like, I have that nickel snare, which is like, it is kind of its own thing in the first place. And then I have this like way that I like tape up the bottom snare so that it's like, it sounds a certain way. And yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I fight with it later. Like, I'm like, oh, I taped it up too much, or like, I didn't tape it up enough, like, it's always kind of like, yeah, it's, there's that snare again, yeah, I think like, if I remember correctly, like, basically what we were doing is like, yeah, you sent me a bunch of riffs, and some of them were connected. Some of them were like, kind of connected.
There was some that were like, here are like 2 or 3 parts that should be in a song together, I think.
Mm-hmm. And then some you were just I don't know. And
yeah.
And I just like got out the like musical sewing kit and was just like, what if we put this weird part in the beginning and then and then did this other stuff? And yeah, there's definitely like, when I listen through, I'm definitely like, okay, like I definitely was the person who like took the lead in this particular area, like
in terms of like compositioning.
Yeah. Not lyrically, which, like once everything was said and done, and I was just like, you take the lead lyrically, like this is your whole thing. I'm already singing on like 5 records, like you go for it. But yeah, like the very first song, like for example, Retreat, that was definitely like, that beginning was me being like, I'm trying to write a 400-year song, and like, I don't, like, I don't know if that comes across or whatever, but like, I love some of those, just like where a really nice sounding chord would be this, but you just put one finger in the wrong spot or something, and so I think this record is a lot of that for me. It's like, oh, this would sound great, but then if I put this like this, then it just sounds great, but in a weird way. And I was really like, I was like really enjoying that kind of thing with this record.
And I think that worked really well, because I think that's where when I'm writing, that's where I suffer from, because I'll jam a thing out and it'll be like I'll write a piece and then hear like 3 variations on that riff, and then like here's another riff that can go into it and go out of it. But like I never know how to put it together in a way that's like a song.
Mm-hmm.
So just having someone be like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna sew this all together into a quilt, and then being like, okay, yeah, that makes sense,
Yeah.
And then I could just move on and then like write parts
Yeah.
to fill in or to go opposite your guitars and stuff.
Uh-huh. It's 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 I think that that kind of relationship in a band is like pretty rare, but I think it's like it, and especially in our case, it came up with some pretty interesting results. Like, I know, like, a lot of people would be like, here's some riffs, and then there would, you know, depending, like, there would be some like reasonable objections to, like, oh, I didn't want that to head in that direction, or I didn't want that. But like, as the person on the other side of that, you kind of like, if you're the person that's like, I don't know what to do with this, like, you have to relinquish that sort of like idea of how these parts were destined to be, right? So like,
Yeah,
as the other person, you kind of also have to just be like, nothing is happening unless something happens. So you just do what you have to do. And sometimes, like, it feels like, because I do that like a lot, right? And I do it with my own songs. Like, I go back to things that I wrote like 2 years ago, and it feels like somebody else, and I'm doing something which is similar, which is like, I'm probably taking this in a direction I never intended before, and so it might feel inorganic or whatever. But like, in the end, what I'm trying to say is, like, there's a song where there wasn't a song, and it's always better for that, right? Like, you know.
yeah,
So that's like, I guess, like, a just a side note, like a long-winded, like, bit of like songwriting advice or whatever, is to just be like, just put something there. Like, it's better as a
yeah.
song than not a song, you know.
And then if I ever had any like doubts or hesitation, I don't even remember, because I remember just like, here are the parts, and then you sent them back to me with like a drum parts,
Mhm.
and maybe some of your guitar stuff too, and like, okay, that was it. And I liked all the stuff you did,
Yeah,
so there wasn't any like, oh, I don't know. The one thing I think I remember was that you put two of my parts together that I don't think I'd considered before. Like, I
mhm.
was like, oh, that sounds kind of weird and like cool. And I think I think that was number 5. I think, like, I'm trying to remember. Like, something, yeah, it was something like that, where you mixed up the parts, like 2 separate parts I had, and then, but it came out really, really good, and I was like really stoked about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that one, there's a lot of dynamics in that, I think. So probably that makes sense that, like, I just was just grabbing something from one side of the thing and the other, and just being like, what if we did this? But yeah, it's from what I remember, like we already touched on, sometimes you were like, okay, these ones, like, they feel like they go together, but like, I don't know how, or sometimes they would be linked right together or whatever. But so what I remember specifically is, I had like sort of like some notes from you about these parts, and I had the parts, like, you sent me the little clips and stuff. And what I did was, I just took the ones that were like supposed to be together. I took everything, I dumped it into the DAW, and I took the ones that were supposed to be together, and I put them together, and I put little like markers on each side, like, this is one thing, you know, so, sort of sectioning them off. And I was like determined to use everything you sent. I was like, that if I felt like, okay, come on, like, I can use everything. Like, we can figure this out. Like, this is, you know. So I so it was like that sort of like, and this might have ended up being the way that really, like, interesting thing you thought, like, happened, is that when you start taking the things that make the most sense and putting them together, then you have like this, all the scraps at the end, and it's not that any of those
Yeah,
parts are like are like any like less cool than the other. It's just that you didn't know what to do with them. And so I get to the end and I was just like, you know, I might have just been like, fuck it, we're gonna make this work, you know? And and then and yeah, that's a huge like part of the way I write as well, is just like it could have been two parts, and I just separated them with a drum beat for the time being, because like it could have felt like this part was like this and this part was like this, but they shouldn't just, you know, you're talking about something specific where the two things butted right up against each other, I think. But like in other instances, I'll just put a bridge there, like that is like a drum beat or something, because it's like I'm more concerned with the momentum than like how it's going to get there melodically. Because if I figure the momentum out, then I'm going to figure out the melody like easily, you know? And so I remember that was kind of a thing I did too. And there might have even been like one or two parts that we sort of figured out when you got here. I can't remember, but I do know that like, yeah, I recorded I recorded a lot of guitars, and I recorded the drums before you got here. And then you got here.
There was definitely like some parts on some songs that I was still like working out by the time I flew over. And I was like incredibly anxious and nervous about like, you know, because I was there for like a long weekend, right? It was like maybe 3 or 4 days.
Yeah. It was just kind of like I don't remember if it was like, I don't know what, you know, September, I don't know if that was like a holiday weekend or if it was just, but yeah.
I think it was.
Yeah.
Because that's how I did my, that's how I took my vacation days then.
Yeah.
So I probably came over like Thursday night or something. And then we probably, you know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then maybe I left Monday night, or I don't know.
It was definitely something like that. Like,
yeah.
But I remember like, yeah, we got the guitars done like pretty painlessly, except for that weird thing that was happening with my tuner pedal, which was like, it was killing. It was taking the bite out of the distortion. Like it was just like some weird short in the tuning pedal. Like, do you remember that?
Yeah.
And it was just like
I something like that. It was like really like funky. Like it wouldn't like. I do remember the tone changing up like between takes sometimes and being like, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah, and like we were both in the like sort of like the heat of like recording and like the nerves and the like. Okay, I'll just get the next one, and so like we didn't catch it like every single time, and so then we would listen back and we'd be like, oh shit, like we got to do it again or whatever, but I mean, you know, obviously like that all worked out in the end.
Hey, you know who you are. Experience done. Wet, bad, words. Like your fucking hands. I'm done with the cosplay. Very on point. That kid don't look like you. Even if I knew, they took away my dad. A lifetime conversation. Not enough as a sign. I'm glad.
I remember other than that, the guitars were like fairly painless. And then the next day we started on the vocals, and it was a little bit more like, because this is like one of those things with doing vocals, it's like you don't, like, you have no way to practice vocals, like,
Not
unless,
entirely, no.
yeah, I mean, like, you can't, unless you have like studio headphones and a place where you can really yell as loud as you need to yell. Like, you can't practice vocal, like a lot of people are like, oh, I practice in my car. Like, I guess you kind of could, you know?
That's what I did. I think
Yeah.
I like a couple of times I would play the thing on my phone through like the Bluetooth,
Uh-huh.
and then like driving to work on the freeway or something, I would yell along the lyrics I had in mind, or like try to figure out the phrasing for like a part, you know.
Right. So it
That's
definitely,
about as most as you could do.
yeah,
Or
yeah.
that's what I did.
Yeah, you can get the rhythm down and you can get the cadences down that way. But like when you come here and you got the songs like blaring in your headphone and now you're like doing it for real, then you're like, oh, there's a different part of this that I wasn't able to really practice, and that's sort of like the stamina of it. You know,
Yeah.
like that part is so hard. Like, I do vocals all the time. And it's like one of those things where you just, like, I swear, like, especially at my age or whatever, I think you need to like be a runner. You need to, like, you know what I mean? Just to like have
Yeah.
that kind of breath, you know, that you need.
Yeah. For me at the time, I had only done vocals on like the second Heritage Unit record, and I was splitting space with two other people, so I didn't, you know, my parts were small and kind of contained, and then I was not used to that. I think, and that was like that was an 8-song record, and I did vocals on maybe half the songs,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like 4 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
So having to I think I only did 11 songs on this one. I think there's one that's all you.
Yeah, yeah.
So doing that, and then doing takes for all of them, and then I don't have much practice with my voice too. So like, I was trying to do some melodic stuff I was not used to. I had like not practiced at all. Yeah, it was rough. That's like the only thing when I listen back is that maybe I wish I could have taken time with the vocals, you know.
Yeah. Well,
But it is what it is. Yeah.
Another thing that I was gonna like mention is, you know, one thing that I always try to tell people when I'm recording them is like, you know, like listen back, or like listen back when I put it through just like a couple like mild effects, you know, like, because it's one of those things where a take can just sometimes, like, no matter how long like I've been doing this or whatever, sometimes like a take can just not feel that good. Like, but it's actually like it was good, or it was even like possibly like a really good take. It just, like, for whatever reason didn't feel as good. And I remember that was something that we had to, like, we had to come to an understanding over, like, as you sort of like beat yourself like into like you were just like physically getting tired, you know. And
Yeah.
and that's like, I'm like, look, look, like half these takes are like really good, you know, like, and you're like, I know how that is. I know how when you like listen back to something raw, or like maybe you just didn't, a big problem I have is like, I'm like, I get in my head about all this shit, right? Like, like, there's a difference between playing a show and making a record, you know what I mean? There's a million differences, but it's like, I get in my head, like, I'm like, I want with every syllable that I put into this microphone, I want to feel that word in my soul, like, like way down inside of
Yeah.
myself. And it's like, you kind of can't approach, like, that's the way you go for it at a show. You put your whole teeth out, you know what I mean? And you're like, ah. And doing a recording is just different, fundamentally. And like, you can have performed like quite well, even great, into the microphone, and not feel like inside, like, yeah, we just fucking crushed it. You know what I mean? Like, and that's like
Yeah.
something that takes a long time to like get used to, where you're just like, you listen back and like, I don't even know how many takes I've done where like, I'm just like, I got 2 takes in, I've saved them both, I go and do a third take, or maybe it's even like it's a week later, right? And I'm going to do this like third take or fourth take, and I'm like, holy shit, yeah, that was the one. You know what I'm saying? And then I go
Yeah.
back to mix, I don't know the fucking difference. Like, I can't tell the difference. Which one of these was the one? Like, they're all identical. You know what I mean? Like, they're so close. Like, it's impossible to tell. It's just like you're looking for that thing where you're just like, oh yeah, that was the one. And sometimes it's just like, you did great. It's fine. Like, let's go. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And then there were some that I had down right away, like that I had planned. Like I think the first 3 songs for me are like that, where I had already, like, before I flew over, I'd already had the lyrics ready and I knew what I was gonna do. And I think we probably did some of those first, so my voice is like at its the best it could be on those ones.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can still kind of hear it back. I don't know if people, like, if they're just they pop on the record to listen. I don't know if they can tell now, but I can hear where, like, oh yeah, I did this earlier in the day, so my voice is like, it's one way, and then this song I did like near the end, and maybe I hadn't figured out all the lyrics for that one yet, and it's kind of like I could tell that I'm really tired, at that song.
Yeah. But what I think is like, I mean, even though it was unintentional, I think it's like really kind of endearing and cool. Like, it's like there are a couple of them where it's like, yeah, like you really have this like battling Jack Murdoch, like doesn't want to throw the show, you just throw the fight like vibe, like, and it's like, it really reminds me of like Leatherface and stuff. Like, like that guy just always sounds like he just had, like, he was just in like a bare knuckle boxing match, and then like, had to go sit down in a corner and have somebody like pour water over him just to like get back up to the mic. It's like, and
Yeah.
there's definitely like a song or two. I should have like made a note about like which one of those in particular, but yeah, there's definitely a song or two where you're like, this is such a different there's such a different thing going on there vocally, but like it could people could have thought it was intentional, who knows. I just I think it adds like a dynamic and a charm, even if it was unintentional.
There's a thing too, like within emo, of being like, because if you're as deep as like we are sometimes with it, I'll listen like, oh, there's one band who put out a 7-inch in the 90s or whatever, and the vocals will be really bad, like objectively bad, but still have a charm, that sort of like, just that sincerity you get with the genre of like, it's just these punk kids trying to make music, and it'll like, yeah, it's bad, but it sounds good at the same. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Have you heard that? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And there are parts where I try to do that like on purpose. Like, I think there's one where I'm like, I was trying to like purposefully sing like kind of off key, just because I know I can't really sing. So it's like bad, but in a good way, like on purpose, kind of thing. It's very hard to like um it's very hard to do when you're like in it. But I think some of those things come out like listening to the record now, and nothing bothers me as much as it did,
Yeah.
back then, and I liked all of it,
Yeah. It's like you're like, look, I kind of want to go for this. I kind of want to go for this thing, but I can't quite get all the way there. And if I don't get
Yeah,
all the way there, then it's going to sound like this. So you just kind of lean into that. You just kind of say, that's what it's going to be like. Then I'll just embrace that. And you just, and you wind up with what you wind up with. And yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I think I always find that more interesting than like just, uh, you know, like a perfect flawless like execution or whatever. Like there was a record I did and my friend Corey did vocals on a song, and they had come up to the old place to do their tracks because they live like 2 hours away in Bloomington. So they just drove up and we like did the tracks and had dinner and hung out. Um, and yeah, there's this part in the song that they did, and like their voice got so out of control it squeaked like a prepubescent teen, and they were like,
oh, the crack, yeah,
yeah, they were like, I should redo that, and I was like, please don't. Like, I won't tell you no, don't redo it, but I love that shit. Like, please leave that, and they did, so it was
yeah,
cool. But yeah, it's I don't know, I always find that stuff interesting. Um, but yeah, let's kind of like just go through the songs a little bit and sort of talk about like you know if we can remember just by like the names and sort of like the thing we were going for, like what we sort of liked about the songs, or even if it was like something we didn't quite hit, I'm not sure. But yeah, the first song's Retreat. And yeah, we already talked about, like, I definitely was trying to write like a 400 years type song. I sort of started that song, and then we, just like each did our thing throughout there. Um, that I think that was definitely one of the first ones that you recorded vocals for. I think
yeah.
like
I feel like probably the first three I did, because those always to me feel like they were the ones that like for me were more fully formed going into the project.
mm-hmm.
And uh in terms of my like lyrics and like my vocal performance, I think there's the most clarity in terms of like you can tell what kind of project this is, like what this band wants to be, and
Mm-hmm.
it comes across, I think, really well in these three songs.
Okay. See, I could definitely agree with that. Like, the project coming across in a certain way, and like that making the most sense in the first song, but in Time Served, I feel like I was going for a very different thing than I was in the first song, and like, because I feel like what I was trying to do overall was I was like, okay, I want I want the like because I was definitely feeling some of your like early Jawbreaker 7-inch parts like from that are littered throughout, but then I was
Yeah,
also like we were talking about 400 years a lot, so we were kind of centered on that kind of thing. But then I was like also like, what could go in here is like some I brought you my bullets, like My Chemical Romance, like riffs. And I feel like in the second song, I definitely was trying that. I was definitely trying like a poppier sounding, like, and then,
oh yeah, I could see that. Yeah,
yeah, and then another thing when I talk about like Jawbreaker, stuff like that. Another band that is just bound to come into the conversation is Sam I Am, and specifically like their first two albums. Like I just
Okay, yeah.
I just find the guitar playing so much more interesting than anything they did later. Like I like pretty much all their albums, but the first two albums just like the guitar playing is just incredible. I think they had like a metal drummer on their first two albums because it's like the drums are like not right for the songs at all, but they're like perfect for the songs. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like they did not match what the guitars were doing, but it was like perfect because it didn't match, you know? And yeah, definitely at the end of Time Served, I had that really weird, and I was like, this is a Sam I Am part from like their first album that like didn't make it on the album. That dun 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 dun, like that really weird ending. Like that was
Oh
me
yeah,
in high school listening to Sam I Am. That was me writing that part, you know, like, and yeah, I mean, it's it's like you go from that first song to the second song, and it's like I feel like if you just played those two songs for somebody like separately, you could tell them it was two different bands, you know, or whatever. But like when you listen to them consecutively, it doesn't. At least to me, it doesn't. It's not jarring, you know. It's like it's fine. It works. But yeah, like I feel like that's one of the I feel like that's one of the ones that you definitely remarked on that you were like that riff's kind of weird. And I was like, yeah, right, isn't it? Yeah. But
the ending
Time Served.
for I don't
Yeah.
think so. I think the one I thought was really weird, or that I thought was like, oh, that's so. I think it was probably either like Route or Sortie, which we'll get to.
Yeah, yeah.
It was one of like the harder, like there was a couple of riffs you had that were like really hard and heavy. And I was like, damn, okay, yeah, I'm gonna try to go there. Let's do it.
Yeah,
I think my riffs on I think on Retreat are some of my favorite. Like I always like it when like I really like these kind of elongated melodic guitar lines that I think you get in Time Served a lot, and then I like it too when like people do like you're playing chords, but they're like but you're almost playing it like a piano, right? Where you play the chord and then like a couple of connecting notes in the chord, and then but it's like all like really fast and together and melodic. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
oh yeah, I definitely have this thing that I just love to do where my hand will stay in the same spot, but I'll move like my fingers to change sort of the roots. So it's like
yeah,
I think that's what you're describing, like is like yeah. So you'll hear this sort of like constant, like I'm just giving away the whole like I'm telling everybody how the sausage is made today, but but it's like, yeah, I love that really like, okay, so these two notes, like you're gonna hear this, like no matter what changes, and then I'll like use like my index finger and another finger to like change the root of that note, and it's like, yeah, it's like it makes it sound like it's grounded, but it's like moving, and
yeah,
yeah, and that's definitely something that like another guitar player can have a field day because you don't have to go to the same notes that I'm like leading you to or whatever, and so there can be like really interesting things there too. And I feel like we definitely explored that idea a bit as well, where it was just like you were doing things that I was like, see, that's why I asked you because like I never would have thought of that. Like a million other people would never would have thought of that. Like that's something like you thought of, only you would have thought of, you know, kind of thing. And yeah, like Pyrrhic Victory, I think is one. Like I'm pretty sure that first riff there was something that you had sent me. And yeah, that's the third. We're on the third song now, and then
yeah.
and
This
yeah,
one,
go ahead.
this one was, I remember for sure almost being a Heritage song. Like I had most of the first half of the song figured out. I think by the time I sent it to you.
Mm-hmm.
and I played it for the folks in Heritage. And we almost worked on it, but it didn't. It ended up not happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking like, I wonder how it's going to come out when I send it to you. And I think the drumming you went with is almost exactly what I wanted for it, and I think it came together really well for that one.
Yeah, it's like I can't remember after it got started. I can't remember, the details as far as like, how the rest was assembled and whatnot. But I really love like that little. It's sort of like it feels like a little like jump in the middle where there's like the muting, and then it goes to the end, which is like there's a lot of like starting and stopping with the guitars and stuff. Like I really love that like whole like way the song flows and how it takes this little turn in the middle and then like
Yeah,
you know um
and this was also definitely one that I didn't know. Like, I had a certain amount of riff up to a point, and then I don't know what comes next. I don't know how we transition into this into another thing. But then it's one of the examples of like you coming in, putting down drums, and then immediately, okay, then we're doing this now.
yeah
And then I remember the rest of it came together pretty easily.
yeah I find that a lot where it's like once the drums are there then you're like this makes sense like
Yeah,
and yeah I think that's why like people that can like guitarists that can use drum software are like just like taking over the game at this point because they figured it out. They were like, wait, if I just put a drum part there, then the rest will follow, And yeah, that's a really like fun and interesting way to like make that connective tissue between ideas and stuff. Yeah, Route is the fourth song. I don't know. Like how this one came together. I feel like this is another one of the ones that's like it's obviously it's some of your ideas and then some bit of arrangement, magic on some parts. I think one of the cooler things about this song is the vocals. I feel like the vocals work really well in this one. Just the way that like we're not singing like the same things, but we're not fighting over space and stuff either.
yeah. Let me take a minute and listen to it because I don't remember.
Take one look around. Bury this pain deep inside yourself. You don't get to know what it's like to escape. You forfeit that the day this began. You have the words, the hurt, the feeling that you have. Do you think it hurts enough? Could you make them feel it? And does it bring to it? Came back good enough for the sake. But I learned this from the surface. But I get this and this done. I never asked you to play it. She get burned down. That's why I love. Look at this, she get burned down. I never deserved it. Look at this, she get burned down. Turn it signal. Look at this, she get bent. Maybe you can't fix anything. Maybe you just burn and sponge yourself. Maybe you can't fix anything. Maybe you just burn and sponge yourself. And sometimes that you're just enough.
Okay, I remember. Yeah, this one's really fast. I forgotten. I swear I listened to this record again last night, but I must have like zoned out or something.
Yeah, I definitely had this. I had definitely had to stop at some point and start a song over because people were like asking me questions or something while I was trying to like write notes and everything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot about that song that I really like, and it a couple times over the years, I've just been putting out like random comps or whatever, and so I'll message you and I'll be like, is it cool if we put one of these songs on this comp? And we always come back to the same couple of songs, like we're like, oh, this would be a good one. But when I was listening through again, I was like, I was really proud at how like exceptional each song is. Honestly, it's just like there's maybe it's just not the thing that is like maybe this song isn't the thing that's like most memorable or whatever, But I think I just as much as you always come back to like Perry Prime, like that's like an obvious one, right? Like you're like that song's good and it's like memorable and it's like it's all the things that you're like if you want somebody to hear one song and decide if they want to check out more, then that's a great one to go with, right? But I was like there's something that I like about all these songs, like, and sometimes it's just like a song isn't the song that you're trying to show somebody to like be like, hey, check out the rest of them. But like, yeah, this one, like, it's like I said, it's got, it starts out, and I think that the vocals work really well together, and then
Yeah.
there's that sort of groove in the middle,
Hell yeah. And that's
and
what I was, yeah.
yeah, and that was really fun to play. Like I actually recorded that groove, like the muted guitar part. I recorded that like so many different ways, just and it was just so fun to like play that part that I was like I kept redoing it, like, and honestly, like it was just because I wanted to keep playing. Like I was, you know what I mean? Like I was just like, I had the take like 3 takes ago, but I was like, damn, this is fun. Like boom,
It's a
boom, boom,
really
boom.
interesting part
Yeah,
with the rest of the song too, because it after the first like aggressive part, it does the song does like kind of like slips into grooves and stuff, and I think keeps that, but also like there's something about like the kind of like muted noodling, not noodling, but like the little bits you were playing.
yeah. I think it's if I was like gonna use a word that described it to me, is it's like it's really sneaky feeling. Doesn't it feel sneaky?
Yeah, yeah,
Like like I don't know how else to describe it. It's just like, ooh, you feel like you're sort of looking around, like making sure nobody's paying attention to what you're doing. Like that's what that riff feels like in my head. But
yeah.
yeah, it was a
And
lot. It was a
then,
lot of
and then
fun.
it goes from that into like this like louder crescendo-y bit that's also really cool. Like,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think that's the thing about a lot of these songs is like I said, like I think there's like really special like stuff happening in them, but like you there's a certain amount of investment that you have to make, like to be like, I'm gonna give this like I'm gonna give this attention and like and check it out, like, and just sort of be in for the ride that like a more straightforward thing like doesn't require, like Perry, for example, like Perry Prime like just doesn't take that kind of investment. You're just like, oh yeah, this is really cool. Like, but the other one is like some of the other songs you're just like, yeah, like there's this really cool special stuff about them, but it's like not the thing where you're just like if you're like, hey, do you like punk songs with really weird shit in them too? Then you might be like, well, check this song out, And I feel like some
yeah.
of the songs definitely have that, and like I love them for it. Um, I think uh, I think Priority is definitely one that starts out with one of the riffs that you had sent. Um, And that one is sort of like the first one where we like there's like a really quiet part in the middle with like really sort of like pretty sounding guitars.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's
I
got
think
go for it.
I think that's the part I was talking about. Where like I don't remember how I sent the file, whatever, but hearing like there's a part that ends on this chordy like heavy bit, dun 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 dun, and there's a break, and then we get into like the softer guitar bit, and my vocals I feel like really work in that part, for what they are.
Mm-hmm.
That was where I was like, oh yeah, you can just do that. You can like that because there's some things when I'm writing that I forget about or that I don't consider enough that you can do in like a full band thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know, just like stuff that you hear all the time in like hardcore. Like, oh yeah, I can like stop playing and then you have the bassist do a thing with the drum or whatever, just like stuff that you don't think about. Like I'm just like my hands are on the front and I'm strumming time to grab it.
Yeah.
I think this one's probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, there's definitely an aspect to writing a song on a guitar where you tend to approach it like in a very like acoustic guitar songwriter kind of way where you like you sort of like become like ignorant to the way that the other instruments can carry the song like while you don't, and as somebody who
Especially if you're like me and you just play guitar. Like,
right. Yeah, but I was
I
gonna say
imagine
even
if you're like a multi instrumental, you probably think better.
I definitely try to, but like yeah, I mean I even still fall into that sometimes, and it's like it's one of those things where I I try before I settle in to record something, I try to have a good blueprint for it, but like I try not to let a couple of loose lines like make me think that everything won't come together like nice and solid in the end, because like yeah, I should know by now that like some other thing is going to make this part that I feel like is a little bit lacking like work, like something else is going to even this out. Something else is going to but yeah, just even all these like years later or whatever, playing like drums and bass on and different instruments on recordings, like it definitely, when I sit down and I start fooling around and coming up with stuff on a guitar, I want the guitar to figure the thing out from point A to point B at the end of the song, and like it's just like that doesn't always need to be the case,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like Sortie was definitely, one of the ones that I started out, and I definitely was like trying. That was back to me like where I probably listened to the 400 Years LPs like all day, and then just like went and tried to make them come out on my guitar. But one thing I was gonna say, and this is I don't mean to like just be patting myself on the back constantly, but like I think that especially for the bass not being like the focal point of most of this, I think that a few of the bass parts are like really fun, and this song has one of the ones that's really fun in it. And yeah, I remember like beforehand we were gonna like switch up who played bass, and then when you got there I was like, so which songs do you want to play bass on? You're like, I actually figured out that I am not good at bass.
I've been trying to think, but I was trying to write parts.
Uh-huh. Well, I just thought it
And
was
I
so funny the
honestly-
way you said it. You were just like, yeah, I just figured out that I'm not good at bass. Like, so why don't you just do it?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's cool. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, I mean, I don't feel like I'm bad at bass or good at bass. You know, I just like I've played bass in a couple bands. I enjoyed that for what it was. I do like recording bass a lot. I think it's very different. Like it's very different about it's like the way you feel playing a bass and the way
Yeah.
you have to feel. I feel like when you're playing bass on a recording, you have to settle into this mindset like where it's like you don't have to do that when you're playing guitar. Like when you're playing guitar, you're like you could pick up your guitar, you could be like fuck everything. Like I'm gonna pick up this guitar and I'm gonna smash this fucking pick into it a million times and I'm gonna make the gnarliest noises. I don't give a fuck. Like it's gonna sound wild. It's gonna be whatever. You know, like you can pick up this guitar with just hate in your heart and just like go for it, right? But like with bass, I feel like you have to grab this bass and you have to like assert a level of control over yourself that like you don't have to do with a lot of other instruments. Like, does that make sense? Like,
I think so. I since then I like played more bass.
uh-huh.
I ended up writing some riffs that didn't make it onto the recording for that band. But yeah, it's definitely an entirely different band. And I think when we were talking about it, it's like, yeah, I'll write some bass parts, whatever. And then I had enough trouble writing, like, not trouble, but like, I remember I'd been stuff like on guitar stuff that whenever I would try to write bass, like I couldn't wrap my head around.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that Priority, I really like your lyrics, and that the ending, like the melodic ending for it, is like one of my favorite parts in the album too.
Oh, thanks.
It's just like that's like one of those like really fun. Like that's such a Edie part. Just that really good melodic. It's like your vocals are layered, so it's not a gang chant, but it's like
Yeah,
really good stuff.
thank you. The only thing I thought when I was listening to that earlier is like, yeah, I still really enjoyed it. I think it sounds like, I think it sounds like really, like it's fine where it is. But I was just like thinking about that in respect to how I treat similar vocals like now, just like treat them not from a performance angle, but just like from a mixing angle. And I was like, I could have made these more like ethereal or whatever, you know what I mean? And maybe that would not have been the right call, you know? Maybe it's like they're perfect for for the album that they're on, you know? But
Yeah.
like it's not a regret. It's just like one of those like I probably would have done that like this now, and like whether that was the right call or not, like it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
but yeah, I think there was a couple kind of parts like that, and yeah, it was definitely one of those like it was definitely one of those things where I was like, should I do this kind of thing on this thing? Like, does that make it, you know? But then I did so many other things that I thought were weirder or out of place, and they were weird and out of place on purpose. So I was like, yeah, let's go for it. You know, let's make it
Well,
interesting and different, and you know.
yeah, I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
Because I am a sucker for like a melodic look like that. You know.
Yeah, I especially like how it leaves you with a feeling like it didn't go long enough or something. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I wish that would have happened like 2 more times or whatever. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Which
always good.
yeah, it's good because you're like, well, hit rewind, like
I'd rather do that than like
wear it out.
overstay a welcome.
Yeah. It's
For sure.
it's like this idea that I have like about stuff like that is like that it's like a payoff, and it's like how long does it take you to get there, and how much do you give the song, how much payoff do you give the song, and sometimes it's interesting to make a song where someone expects a payoff and it's not there. That's fun too. We're up to track 7, Perry Crime, and we've talked about that a couple times. I think it's like, it's the most like this is the song. Like this is like, the most. I don't feel. I just feel like it's good all the way through. There's not anything that's like overly like unexpected, and yeah, I don't know, like the guitar and your vocals in the beginning, like, and I mean, I don't know, like I was listening to this song tonight, and we put it out like 3.5 years ago, and I was listening to the song, and like it just get to this part, and I'm just like, I just have goosebumps. Like I'm just like, this is a really good song, and like it's been on, I think it's been on like I think there was some point where some like, like someone in Germany or something, or France or something, was doing a comp and was like, can I use one of those songs? And I was like, yeah, and we put that song on there. I'm pretty sure there was like a comp somewhere else that had used one of these songs, and I think we always like, we're like coming back to that one, like, oh, that's a really good one to do. And but yeah, like I'm not even sure, like, if you asked me if I could pick a favorite song, but that's the one that always stands out, like, where it's like,
Yeah.
if you, like, not as a favorite, but it's just like, if you were to say, what's this band sound like, then I'm like, that's the song that this band sounds like. I don't know if that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, Destreza is the one that we brought up before, where it's the really clean one, and you specifically were like, I want really clean vocals on this, and so why don't you take take the helm of that one? And
Yeah,
yeah,
I remember that.
yeah, I remember I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, let's do this. And then I ended up just like having a screaming part at the end anyway. But
Well, you gotta. I
yeah.
think. Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine.
it has singing, but then there's also the screaming at the end. And I think, yeah, I don't know, I think it's the most like feel good song on the album, if that makes sense as well. Like, it's very tender sounding and sweet. It's sort of
Yeah, the most like relaxed maybe, or
yeah.
tension free. I guess. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. There's a there's a lot of there's a lot of my guitar playing where and like this song was like almost all you as far as guitar goes. Like, I mean, I played guitar on it, but I
I think
remember there was
yeah,
you even have some like overdubs and stuff on this one. But
yeah. From what I remember of it, like the bass chord progression stuff was I think I stole it from somewhere. It was something like not really, but like when you like I was playing oh man, what's that band from Australia called? The Drones, I think, or something like that. But this Australian rock band, that was like one ballady song I remember playing, and just like I think I just played the chords backwards or something like that. Something like that. And then I remember being very excited to like try to figure out some lead stuff over it. That's all I remember about it, honestly.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a good song.
It's very, when you were saying like I was playing, I I I was like, if you say you were playing Final Fantasy VIII and they came to that scene where they were trying to pick which musical instruments they were playing and that was an inspiration for this song, like I would not be surprised, but I would shit myself, because it reminds me, the song itself reminds me of like like, I don't know, if you see a movie like from like the 50s, or I don't know, that's not probably not even the right, but if you see a movie that's like supposed to be in the 50s or whatever, and they all go to the school dance and they like play this, and this is a slow song for all you lovebirds out there, and then they start playing, it's this very like doon 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 doon, like it's like it's like a punk version of that, and yeah, I I swear that like I find this really this really like weird like waltzy like influence on my guitar like a lot, and like I didn't like specifically have very much to do with like the guitars in that song or whatever, but I definitely like find a lot of little pieces like that in my other stuff, just like randomly, like here's this little, it sort of sounds like, a prom ballad, from a long time ago, very like darling, and like, and I don't know how to describe it, but if anybody who's played Final Fantasy VIII to any extent, and you get to that part where everybody's deciding which instrument they're going to play, like that's the vibe I get, and but in like a punk way.
Did I ever tell you that one of the riffs that I played is like a ripoff of a Final Fantasy song?
Oh, in 13.
Yeah, 13.
Oh.
I think it's 13.
Okay. 13, that's like with like lightning and all that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if I remember that. Like, yeah, I mean, and it's weird too because like as much as I played that game and become invested in that game when I play it, like it it's music and it's like overall like it doesn't leave the highest impression on me, like
Oh, really?
yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I get invested in it like when I'm playing it and I really enjoy it, but like I don't know if it's just it was sort of it was sort of it wasn't the first one that was like more like cuz 12 was kind of more on the rails, like combat wise or whatever. I don't know how to explain it, but 13 was definitely the one where it was first like okay, they're trying to get it to where people who play games like God of War and stuff want to play this. You know what I'm saying? It just had more it was more
Yeah.
action and stuff and like
I have like the opposite reaction. I don't remember shit from that game, like at all. I don't remember really even liking it that much, but I do remember the song.
okay.
And yeah, one of the I think the beginning one of the first riffs in Palm Story is like a sped up version of like either the main theme or maybe like a piece of lightning theme in that game.
Huh.
I don't remember, but yeah,
That's awesome.
I just
Yeah.
want to put that out there.
I yeah, I mean I as someone who has written an entire album based on Final Fantasy,
That's right.
I you know I've played all those games a lot. I think, you know, I've never been like, oh, the music in this is bad, but that one just doesn't have the same like I just don't know the songs. I don't know if I would be like, oh, that's from that game. Whereas, if a song was in 7, like I know. If a song was in 8, like I know.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I'll have to like send you a YouTube video. I'll show you later or something.
Yeah, awesome.
Because I think once you notice it's like really obvious. I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I've always like I've there's been a couple times that I've done stuff like that. Like there's definitely one time where I was like, "Oh, I'm going to make a screamo version of Kiss by a Rose uh, by Seal." And
Yeah.
no one's caught me, no one's called me out. And then I'm like on the new Coma album, I'm like, "Okay, I'm basically going to like rip off an Elton John song." And like no one's called me on that one either. Even though I like put it right out there. I'm like, "This is Screamo Elton John." Like, and no one's caught me, but like
You'll have to show me, but I don't know which ones those are.
so yeah, track 9. So how would you say that as the fencing term that it is? Is it?
Envelope.
It's just envelope. It's
And-
just like
envelope, I guess.
okay. Yeah, I didn't know if there was like when you say it for what it is, if there was a specific way that you say it to note the difference or whatever.
I don't know if it's specifically a fencing thing, but it is like a combat, like war strategy
Oh, okay.
term.
Okay. That was
It basically means like kind of coming from like the rear,
mm-hmm.
like a flank or something.
That was one of the ones. I think this is the one where I was like, I'm gonna do this really weird thing and see if it works. I think that's the one where I've got the
Yeah, the really weird. The one I had like no idea what to play for. The one this is like the one guitar thing that I think it like stuck in my teeth. I was like, what can I do?
Like,
I think we figured it out like eventually,
yeah.
but it was an extra.
Yeah, because you kind of like, I don't want to just do the same thing. You know, I don't want to do the same thing. I don't want to do. But what do you do with that? It's like that really. It's like it's it's really like a couple cats fighting, you know, or something. It's like, you know, it's like this
Yeah,
really weird and yeah, I don't know. I want to chalk that one up to like some of the weirder um, parts in like I feel like what that really was me listening to like a lot of No Means No and being like, well, how would a like screamo person like be in No Means No or something? You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it, and so that part came out and yeah, that was another one of those ones. Like, I think when you listen to it, you can be like, "That sounds kind of fun to play," and it was. It was like, you know, just one of those things. It's like, it's fun to get the timing right. You know, where you like stop the little bending and then switch to the next part. Like, it's fun to get that timing right. It's like there's a pressure that builds up and releases while you're doing that, and then you're like, "Ah, I did it," you know, and
yeah.
it's one of those cool things that's like it's not that hard to do, but it feels like it's supposed to be, you know. So you, I don't know. It's like sometimes when you're playing guitar, you feel like you you feel like you're cheating or something. Does that make sense? Like you're like that should be harder, you know, or
Yeah, no,
like
I know exactly what you
yeah,
mean.
it
It's like you
sounds
play something that sounds complicated,
yeah.
but yeah, really, I'm just doing this, and it's like the easiest thing.
Yeah, it's really fun. I love finding like little things like that. But yeah, then there's Perry, uh, uh,
Something.
Septime. Yeah, and yeah,
Also,
I think this was
sorry.
definitely one of the ones where I sort of Frankenstein a couple things. But yeah, like what was the what was the real like other than them being like two different sort of like fencing terms or whatever, like
Oh, okay.
what was the
Yeah.
motivation behind like you're like, oh, I want to call one song this parry this and then the other song parry this, like was there more to that thought process as well?
I think there was. Let me see if I can remember. Um, because I think at the time I was thinking like uh a parry being like a defensive maneuver, and sort of lyrically both of those songs being like about someone who's kind of on the back foot and defending themselves, I guess, against like point of view, or not necessarily another person, but like I don't know, trying to like reason with themselves in that way.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
Um, and then just for like, cause I don't remember exactly when we came up with the name, or like I think we threw names for the project back and forth, and like I always thought Riposte sounded cool, and um, and I took like a fashion class in college, and I remember being very into it for a bit, even though I didn't really like keep up with it with to any degree. Um, and then coming up with the names of song, uh, and then like just merging that into like a thematic, into like a theming for the album.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was just like, oh, okay, this one's called, because the thing is that the Perry is a defensive leader, but I in my class they taught us that like I don't know how to explain it without actually like, visually showing someone, but like the angle at which you like point the sword, um, each parry has its own. So like I remember doing a test with that class where like you have the sword flat, straight out in front of you, and the teacher would say, prime, and then you would move the sword in that direction. And then there's like, I don't remember what the other ones were called. But each one has a position, and I think there's like 8 positions. So I remember that's the thing. Like, oh, that's an interesting like naming convention. Like, that kind of fits with the theme of the record and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really cool. It's definitely better than like Unforgiven and Unforgiven 2. It's a it's a better
Yeah.
way to like yeah. Like you're saying how it's defensive, but it's not defensive in the way that you would always think, because like the songs are kind of about like you getting in your own way or in your own head in and trying to work out like the way that you feel about these things, like then that's like yeah, that's something that I like and we recorded this album like however long ago, and that's still the kind of thing that you have to like work on all the time, and
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe that's why some of this stuff still like resonates with me so much.
I think it was, especially for this one, team, it was kind of like just exploring that field of like having been close to someone for a while, and then like finding yourself distant from them and being like, I kind of like it better. I'd like it doesn't bother me that we're not as close, and the fact that it doesn't bother me kind of bothers me.
Yeah.
So I'm like trying to figure out why I feel this way, specifically with this one. That's kind of what this is. It's like I feel bad for not being there, but also like I have reason. It's kind of that thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is something that like that's like a theme I'm going back to like in my life as I've like turned 30 and getting older, and like a lot of people I was really close with in my 20s I'm not close with anymore, or stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's yeah, I don't know, like sometimes it's like I'm only speaking for myself, but sometimes it's like you get in this whole like was it me, like was it this, was it whatever, and sometimes it's just like yeah, you just have to be like well these kinds of things just happen, and people just like move in
Yeah.
different directions, you know, and this is all like
Yeah,
fine,
definitely.
fine, yeah. The next one is Lunge. I don't I don't know like really how how this one all came together, but I do remember like in the middle I definitely was trying some more of that, like what we were talking about before, where it's kind of like one chord that's like doing different things and noodling around a little bit, and there's some parts in there. I think this was the one where I was like, I was really struggling like with making the making a couple of the notes like really stand out, because I was like so excited about this one. I was like, oh, this is like one of the best, like this is one of the best, you know, little sections that I've ever like played. Like, oh, I really played the shit out of this section, and it's kind of just like lost in the, you know, overall like momentum of the song and whatnot. And
Yeah.
that's not. I mean, that's just like not. That's not like, oh, I wish that blah blah blah, or whatever. That's just like one of those things, I think, that when you like when you're listening to something soloed out and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm so proud of that, and there's
Yeah.
that's the only context you have, and then like later it becomes a part of this whole other thing, and just as like an artist, like who you're just like, I hope people heard that one part, I hope they
Yeah.
really like heard that part, because I'm really proud of that. I really love that part. But yeah, that I feel like that was really like me trying to do this whole like, a melodic, like with a little jumpy noodly things like mixed in there here and there as well. The last song, Advance, we talked about before, and you were saying you were going for like this sort of like Jawbreaker ish, and how that I think you said that one was one of the older riffs that you had been sort of knocking around. Yeah, I definitely connected with that Jawbreaker aspect of it like right away, and I think that made it really easy to just be like, well, the drums should obviously go like this,
Yeah.
I kind of felt like maybe I'm just like remembering this or whatever, but I kind of felt like I didn't have a lot of. Sometimes I'm like, well, the drums could go like this or they could go like that, but I remember just being like, oh, this is obviously how the drums go for this part, and kind of just
Yeah.
clicking
Sometimes
with
it's
them
like
all. Yeah, and I do remember you saying that, like, which you mentioned earlier, you being like, most of this, as far as like stuff I came up with, was when I heard the drums, I was like, wow, you really got it, and I was like, that's great, that's what you want to hear, but yeah, I so this one, you the lyrics, like you're singing about like how the trouble that you're having, like, is sleeping, is sort of affecting all these different aspects of your life, and it's like way deeper than that, but just like on a surface level, that's what I was like, okay, that's what. And this is one that I can specifically remember, like, okay, this is how I came up with these lyrics, because I connected with that, and I was like, at that time I had just got a weighted blanket, and so like that's where
okay.
which these lyrics probably don't make any sense to anybody. Like, but I keep talking about 15 pounds of glass. Like I bring that up a couple times, and that's because like this weighted blanket that I got, it was like it was it was something like 15 pounds of these little glass balls. That's what was in this weighted
Is that how
blanket.
they're weighted?
Yeah. It was
Oh,
like
okay.
these little glass balls all throughout this thing, and and yeah, the I tried to like glean like different other things like about like what you were, you know, getting into like on a deeper level and stuff, and like I obviously like I applied that, but I was really fascinated with this idea that you know there's all these little glass balls like in here, and like how strange that seems, because glass is so fragile, and like
It's definitely a very striking thing. So I didn't know it was about the big thing. But yeah, I remember like, yeah, and like that's a phrase that like I do like phrases and songs that seem like not obvious or like really specific, you know.
yeah,
Um, I always have this thing of like there's always bands that have like this is not about anyone's band, by the way, but like they'll have the crescendo part be a really like obvious like um like predictable line, right? Like about falling out of love or something,
sure,
or like something kind of universal like that, and people eat that stuff up like you know like in pop songs, like popular street pop stuff. But I always kind of like it when like a lyric, especially if it's like the crescendo part or like when they're like screaming it, and it's like a weird phrase.
yeah,
I always kind of prefer that. There's a part in one of the songs um, where I think the line is negotiations with the month. But
yeah,
I'm like screaming it, and it's just such a weird. It's like weird and to be kind of funny to have that be um like if we were to perform it live, this would be like the dog piling part, right?
yeah.
Ideally, that everyone wants to scream. Negotiations with the month. Like that's just a weird phrase. Not like not like in that like live show context. Um, so I remember like something like 15 pounds of glass. This like sticks out to me. That's what I remember about it. It's like a very specific thing.
Yeah, and
And
both of those lyrics do have like a very like, um, steady diet of nothing, like Fugazi, like sort of like they harken back like lyrics to those older like post-hardcore and emo bands from like the mid to late 90s and stuff, because like you said, like there's just it's just kind of like, where did that come from, or like, and it's so it it seems like it seems like, or it could seem like somebody's just writing whatever whatever came to mind. But then sometimes when you
yeah,
hear like, sometimes I mean, you always run the risk of like, oh yeah, I just explained this whole thing, and like it could have been way cooler to somebody before I explained it, so you run that risk. But
oh yeah,
that was one specific thing I could remember about the lyrics that I was like, oh yeah, that's like, I just was making this connection to um to this inanimate thing that was supposed to like solve my problems for me, that never did, um but yeah, I really love that stuff too. And I think that these these random like one-off like kind of lines that like, it's like you saying that about like this is like the dog pile part, you know? And it's really funny because like it reminds me of that famous quote from Harrison Ford about some of the lines in Star Wars where he says to George Lucas, he says, "You can write this shit, but people can't say it." You know?
Yeah.
And that's one of those things where it's like you're saying like, yeah, if we ever played this song, and that'd be like the dog pile part, and you're like, you got to wonder to yourself like, because you said like this is where you would expect this really universal like cliche thing, and that's usually what
Yeah.
those parts are, right? And so everybody is up on the mic because they're like, yes, you know, like you broke my heart in two, or what, you know, whatever like
Yeah.
thing you could expect, right? And then when it's negotiations could take months, and you look out and it's just crickets, you know. Like it's like how did I really expect that someone was going to rush the stage to scream that part into the mic, you know? It's like, but I just love that shit, and I don't let that influence me, you know, one bit. Like it's just
No,
like,
yeah, I would always go for that like weird, like that off filter option every time.
yeah. But it's like yeah, it's like what, you know, I've often thought to myself when I'm like, it's like, are you like shooting your successes in the foot by like, you know, because you're just like, look, I'm just gonna say like the thing that makes me like, I'm gonna say the thing that I want to say that makes me the most connected to this. But then you're like, you know, literally no one is like ever rushing the stage to like, you know, have that sing along or whatever, because like, you know, nobody's gonna rush the stage to sing like, you know, Dark Magic's Rip Through Steel. You know, no one's like, it's like, I mean, you know, maybe if
I mean, it could happen.
it could happen, but yeah.
Maybe unlikely. I don't know. But yeah, I think that's just how I tend to approach lyrics as a whole. I really like one of my favorite bands, Titus Andronicus, and like for a lot of their earlier stuff, especially like their lyrics are so like self-referential and like almost to the point where they're in jokes sometimes.
What band?
And Titus Andronicus,
Oh, okay.
like the indie rock band,
Uh-huh.
and I could see how that like could turn someone off. Like, yeah, I don't know what they're talking about. It's dumb or whatever. Like, and there are points where you could take it too far. But I think that when you get into that kind of specific, when you get to that point, you can kind of make these pretty memorable, unique lyrics that you know might catch some attention.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I reckon there's probably, you know, an AI out there right now that, you know, can write a song that lyrically will connect to like every single person on the planet. You know what I mean? Like they've just cracked that code, you know, or whatever. But and there's probably an AI that can write like a entire song full of the weirdest lyrics that you and I would enjoy specifically. But like, yeah, it's one of those things where, you know, you obviously you just like you have what you want to say, and then you get all these weird ideas that pop into your head as well. And sometimes the connective tissue is only like evident to you, and sometimes like other people can glean it as well, and sometimes like it's just reliant on like the passion of the music and the way you deliver it, you know, to say like, yeah, this is like, you know, this all makes sense. This is all like part of the plan. This is, you know, this is like, I know what I'm doing to an extent, you know what I mean? But yeah, so that's the record. And yeah, I hope, you know, like that people go and download it, you know, and give it another spin after they listen to this. Now you you were in a couple bands or a few bands even up until recently, but is Glass Splinter the only band that you're in now?
Yeah. We've been inactive for a bit. We took a break. Um, a lot of just like personal stuff. We'll get COVID, you know, things. But we do have at least a 3-song demo coming out. Hopefully in a month. Um, and then after that, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We don't have any plans to play right now or whatever.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then, like, in addition to that, like, you have been super busy. You've been putting out Crash Coral, which is your web comic with Lainey, and
Yeah.
that is. Are you all in like chapter 9 now, or I think the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
see my problem with webcomics is every time that there's an update, I want to read the entire thing again. So that's what I've done every
Yeah.
time that I've gone back. I think like, yeah, I think
Oh
like,
man, really?
yeah, when there was like 4 chapters, I was like, okay, so I read all 4, and then when the 7th came out, I went back and read all of them, and I'm like, okay, like I'm about to read like all 9 chapters, you know, at some point, and yeah, I do that. Like I go back and read the whole thing like every time. I just I don't know, I it's
Yeah. I can see that because webcomics are weird like that. You know? I don't do I don't really see webcomics I read. I don't usually do that.
yeah.
But sometimes I will. Because some other webcomics only update like a page or two. You know, like there's one called Blade Made. I not read that one. That one is only like a page or two at a time. So every time they post a page, I'm like, I don't remember the last page. I have to like binge 3 or 4, you know, to get it.
Yeah. I think I think like I I pretty much know like what's going on. Or, like I remember the last thing that happened, but I like to go back, especially because, you know, I think it's really interesting to see, like, just from a creator's point of view. You know, like this isn't something that, like, this isn't something that like y'all have been putting it out like consistently and everything, but like this isn't something that like you can see from the start and you can read it up until now, and this is like you both, you know, like you were, I feel like you two were very good when you started this, but everyone, like every time somebody does something, hopefully they get better at it, and this is like a continuation of this, like not only this like progress in each of your skills like individually, but it's a progress of your like collaboration and your teamwork, you know, like, and sort of like
Yeah.
it's like how you watch the first episode of a show, and people are like good, but you're like they don't know how to, they don't they don't know each other yet, you know what I mean? There's this apprehension or whatever, and I
Yeah.
don't I don't think you can tell this as much like in comics, you know. There's no like thing on the page where it's like, oh, like people don't know how to react to each other, you know, or whatever. But I feel like it's just like, yeah, as the time goes on and you're like you almost can feel like, oh, I know how these characters like behave with one another and stuff like that. And it's interesting to see that go. And yeah, I don't know, like this isn't something that people get to experience a lot with you know, Marvel, DC or whatever, because it's like Batman's been on the pages for thousands of issues now. It's like, so I don't know. I think it's really,
Yeah.
it's a really fun experience to just be like,
Thank you.
you can literally take this comic like from the beginning and you can go through it every time. But
Yeah, we just finished chapter 8. Chapter 9 starts the 19th of this month, I believe. And then we're in the later half, or like kind of first book, I'm calling it,
mhm.
Chapters 10 and then 11 are like really kind of heavy. There's a lot going on. Pretty excited for when those come out. Yeah, and people can read that at crashcola.com. You just type that in your URL, and then it'll take you right there.
And that was part 2 of the AMA series. Thank you so much, Randall, for taking the time to go down memory lane with me. I'm still so proud of this album and glad to call you a friend. As some of y'all know, I've been dealing with my own medical problems and some medical issues with one of my children. For that reason, I haven't been booking many podcast chats. I hope to get back on that as we are both on the road to recovery, so thanks for being patient. If you have someone you'd love to hear on the podcast, please send me a message on whatever social media platform you prefer. In the meantime, head over to patreon.com/humanmachine and see what else I've been up to. There's over 200 pages of comics you can read the minute you sign up. Patreon.com/humanmachine. Until next time, take care and do good things.